How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, I'm sitting with a good friend of mine that I've known for quite some time now, since high school, Mr. Nick Wedlow. Welcome to the show. And, Nick has been a football star from what I remember, him being on the field and everything. But since then, he has gotten his aeronautical degree.
Yep.
And then now he has this new venture where he is a published author of the book Overnight Father. And today, I would like to welcome you to the show.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me, Adam, man. It's a pleasure being here, bro. Really glad we got to, link back up and catch up and everything. I'm amazed at what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You've always been successful. We've had a relationship ever since like middle school or something like that. And I'm really excited to be here and reconnect and, talk about business.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the first things I have to start out with is you wrote this book, and this book is really about your journey with becoming a father. But tell me, in your opinion, who is this book written for?
So my target audience for this book is, fathers who may be experiencing some type of difficulties with child custody and visitation. So that's my target audience, and I'm just hoping it organically reaches that audience through like word of mouth and things like that. Because I'm getting some great feedback so far, man, and I'm excited about its potential.
And so, what experience do you have in that realm?
So as far as that, man, like I've experienced a contested custody battle, and I went through a legal battle that was probably about 5 or 6 years long, and I gained a lot of different experiences working with several different lawyers throughout that time frame and that process, and I, gathered my lessons learned on everything that I had to overcome, and I pretty much put it in a book in story format, and it's a true story.
So let's dive in a little bit into the story.
All right.
How did you become a father?
Literally overnight, man. So that's the title of it, Overnight Father. And the way it happened was, I was dating someone that I met, back in the day in high school. And, it was an interracial relationship. So we couldn't really popularize, what we were doing, as far as, our parents knowing and everything. So
it was very hush hush.
yeah, it was kind of hush hush. Like close friends knew, but beyond that, like nobody really knew what was going on. And we kept it that way for a reason because, I didn't want to, make anyone's, family upset or their dad for one. You know how dads can be really protective of their little girls. You know what I'm saying? So I really respected that. And, what happened was she gave me a phone call one night. I was about to go to bed, and she was like, "Hey, I'm in the hospital. I just had a baby." And that's the way I found out.
You didn't even know during that?
I didn't even know that, she was pregnant because my son was like 2.5 months premature, so she never really got big and was showing her anything. So
did she ever have any idea, you think?
Honestly, man, I'm not really sure. I have my assumptions, and I think she may have had an idea, but I also think that, she was too afraid to share that and, didn't really know how to handle it. So, and I actually confronted her about it a couple of times because, rumors started going around, bro. And,
This is before she had the child.
this is before she had a child. And rumors started going around, and they got back to me and my mom. So my mom approached me and was like, "Hey, people are saying that, such and such is pregnant." And I was like, "What? Like, wait a minute. I'll go ask her." Like, I didn't know that.
So at that point, did you, I mean, was the relationship on broadcast at that point? Everybody's talking about like this potential baby, right?
Yeah. So at that point, that's what really spiraled the rumors, and everything started. People started gossiping, because we started being seen together a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because I played football, and she was a huge football fan, so we would start to interact in public, because we weren't really at that point, like we didn't realize what the perception was. You know what I'm saying? And we wasn't necessarily trying to hide it either, but from our parents, we didn't really. I didn't mind if they knew. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of wanted them to know because it would have made me feel more comfortable doing what we were doing.
Sure.
But then, I don't know like if her parents had any issues with it. I later on, found out that they did. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, I was under the impression that they knew we were cool and they knew we were, dating, but it was a completely different story. Like when she went home, you know what I'm saying?
That must have been so tough.
Yeah.
You are at this time. How old were you?
I was 17.
17.
Yep.
Going through high school, playing football.
Yep. On track to get a scholarship.
Yeah. Scholarship and everything. And all of a sudden, this literally comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. Do you recall how you felt?
Honestly, man, it was so many different emotions I was experiencing at once, man. It was like complete shock.
Did you she lied to you, right? Like to a certain extent, right?
To a certain extent, yeah. She withheld it from me. I'm not going to, say she was lying about it.
Okay.
Maybe she didn't know.
Sure.
I don't know. Like she was 16, I was 17. So
Sure.
like we didn't have a lot of experience with that. But the information was definitely withheld from me. If there were any symptoms or anything like that, like I wasn't really aware of those. Had I known, it would have been good information to know because maybe I could have told my parents a little earlier. But as far as the emotions I was experiencing, it was just shock, worry, concern, and just disbelief, man.
Wow.
So, and I had to deal with all that in one package, bro, from a phone call, and it was like, wow, like I remember pacing back and forth in my room for like an hour before I went to go wake my mom up because she was asleep at the time.
What time was it?
It was like 10 o'clock,
Wow.
man. 10 o'clock at night, man. So
you get moms up.
Yeah.
What mom say?
She didn't really say anything, bro. Like, I told her, and she just, like, put her hand over her mouth like she wanted to scream, but, like, she didn't make a sound. And, like, the way she was looking at me, it felt like I had let my mom down for the first time. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And that was a rough experience for me, bro, because, like, at that point, I had never really disappointed her on a big stage like that. And, I believe that she thought that I was lying to her about the rumors that were going around. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't really defend myself because the perception, you know what I'm saying? She asked me, I told her no, because I really thought that, she wasn't pregnant. But in reality, she was. And that made me look like a liar to my mom. So that was really rough to deal with. But after the first time she held my son was like, I was completely forgiven. You know what I'm saying? Like she immediately switched into grandparent mode and it was just like loving and supportive. Yeah.
That's amazing. So after that point in time, you kind of, you had to make a call of whether or not what type of role you wanted to play in the child's life.
Yep.
How did you come across your decision, and what made you do what you did?
Honestly, it was a no-brainer to me because, historically, the childhood father figures I learned something from all of them. Wow. So, and I honestly announced like who my biological father is in this book. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of my family didn't really know like who my actual bio dad was. Like my last name isn't from my bio dad. And I had to announce that in the book because I felt like that shaped the way I wanted to parent because my biological father wasn't there for me. So I immediately wanted to be there for my son. And that was all I needed to make my decision on whether or not I was going to be present or distant. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so for you, when you were making that call, you said that you actually did not have kind of like that type of relationship with your dad.
Yeah.
But you mentioned in here that there were father figures that you did have, and they were the ones that kind of like shaped your decision ultimately.
Absolutely.
I think it's very, that's such an amazing thing, right? Like, the relationship between, father and son is an extremely special one.
Yep.
For you to be able to break, I guess, that cycle and say, hey, look, I'm going to make a stand and I'm going to be there for my child, I think speaks volumes to your character and who you are.
I appreciate that, man.
And this is what this book is really about, who you are as a person. And not only that, but how you can help shape the way that fathers interact with their children.
Absolutely.
right? Which is super cool. So at this point, you find out about the pregnancy. The school is being extremely supportive of everything that you're doing. You have a scholarship at this point.
Yes. So I
Okay.
already had a scholarship. I had already signed my letter of intent. I was just getting ready to, coast until the end of the school year and then go off to college. So another decision had to be made, like, and I remember us sitting down like, hey, so what do you want me to do? Because like,
Who are you sitting down with?
with my son's mom.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, what do you want me to do? Because I have this scholarship and I really think, I can go off and be successful and position myself to provide better for, our child. So the decision was made that I still go off and pursue my, scholarship dreams.
So you went to play.
Yes, I went to
Okay.
play at Ball State University.
Okay.
So that's in the Mid-Atlantic Conference.
Okay.
And yeah, man, full ride scholarship,
Wow.
running back. Got up there to Indiana, and it was a complete culture shock, compared to Georgia because, they have all the seasons up there, and they almost can have all the seasons in one day. So that was like pretty extreme for me, man. Like going to practice in the snow and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was a very hard transition going from Georgia to like Indiana and getting used to a full academic and athletic schedule. It was almost like having a job, bro. And, in college, everybody's the best player from their high school. You know what I'm saying? So that was my first experience really having to compete to, prove to the team that I can help win. I can help the team win. And that was a rough transition for me because it was a very hard schedule to balance, going to class and going to practice and then going to study hall after that and, having to write papers and balance all of that on a weekly basis was just rough, especially in addition to the other distractions of college, like, partying, like women and like, all the different distractions of college, just trying to balance all of that stuff. Like it was too much for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be honest, it was a little too much for my level of maturity at that point. So had a rough transition. I wasn't successful. I wasn't able to keep my GPA high enough to maintain my scholarship. So I ended up being back home in my mom's house, bro. And that was like a really rough, wake up call for me. And at that point, I was like, man, I have this son that I have to care for, provide for. So I was like, what am I gonna do? So that's when I decided to go and talk to a recruiter, and I joined the Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you spent how long of a period of time in Indiana?
it was about 3 semesters.
Okay.
Yep.
So and then that wasn't working out too well. During this time, were you able to still, see the baby?
So when I was home, yes,
Okay.
we still had a great co-parental relationship. I was able to see the baby like when I visited home from like, school and football and all that. And then, I entered into the Air Force, was like, hey, I'm a, step my game up a little bit and re-vector myself, get myself on the path of success. Went off to the military, and that's when I was able to really establish myself financially. And like I said, we were still having a good co-parental relationship. So we was able to, go to court, and I was able to legitimate myself as the father of my son. Because in the state of Georgia, when your child is born out of wedlock, you have to legitimate yourself as the father.
How do you do that? DNA test or what is that?
Yeah, DNA test is one way you can do it, and you can also like go into the courthouse and say, hey, this is my son. I signed a birth certificate, or my daughter, or whatever the case may be, and then you take it to court, and you file a petition to legitimate yourself.
Wow.
With the courts, and that's how you do it. And she was on board with it, so I was able to establish legitimation, child custody. I got joint custody at that time, but she was like the primary custodial parent originally. And then I was also able to establish a visitation agreement in addition to an amount of child support that I can provide. And we got all that stamped by a judge. This was back in like 2009. And then I just started spending my child support or paying my child support and exercising my visitations through like summers and like Christmas and stuff like that. And everything was going fine at first, but like I said, over time, the distance, it kind of made things more difficult. I wasn't making a lot of money when I first got into the military, but eventually I was able to, build up and acquire more rank and you know, more authority and things like that to help me exercise more visitation. And you know, after I ended up getting married to my current wife.
Okay.
And then from there, that's when things really got difficult. You know what I'm saying? So I started being denied like my visitations.
Because
I don't want to blame it on that, you know, but that really, you know, changed the shape of the co-parental relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it just became very difficult for me to continue my visitations, and I didn't really know how to deal with it at first. So luckily, I had some great mentors who were able to guide me and help me navigate those murky waters. And I was able to sit down with a paralegal, and I ended up speaking with a lawyer, and that's when the custody battle started. So like initially, you know, I started, you know, filing for motions of contempt, because when your court order is not being abided by, you can hold the other person in contempt. And then they'll have to explain why they didn't follow what was in the original order. And that's how you start that paper trail and start really gaining momentum on, you know, making sure that the other party sticks to the agreement. Because nobody likes standing in front of a judge and explaining why they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So, and that's how you can really start that paper trail and give yourself some advantage and momentum, so that when you eventually get to like a custody modification, you'll have that leverage and that paper trail to show like, hey man, like I can provide. Here's how I've been, you know, prevented from getting my visitations, and be able to prove it through like receipts and screenshots and emails and all this other stuff that you can show like, hey, just pretty much paint the pictures for a judge to assist them with making the best decision for the best interest of the child.
So right now you're like hitting on like the legal side a lot. What was it like for him, right? Like while he was growing up, what was the experience there between the son and the mother of the child? Like, what was that like?
So their relationship has always been great, and you know, which is okay, but he didn't really understand that he needed both of his parents. Regardless of whether or not they stayed together, it was still beneficial for him to see both of his parents. So he didn't really understand that at the time, and he was too young to, you know, actually comprehend what was going on. And there was a lot of emotions from him, like frustration and disappointment and lack of understanding, that he had to cope with over time. And you know, eventually after I got custody, I was able to get him with the counselor to help him like process all those feelings and emotions, and you know, really accept what was happening for him. Like, not only did he not understand it, he also didn't want it to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because that was because what his life before is what he was used to.
Yeah.
And so that must have been crazy for him to kind of have to go through, right?
Oh yeah.
For you know, the decisions that you're making. I mean, you know, all of these things sound so challenging and difficult.
Yeah.
What type of advice would you have someone that is maybe going through something very similar?
Well, the best advice is you got to stay persistent, bro. You got to, you know, utilize your resources, position yourself, and it's really a mentality you got to have. Like, me personally, I didn't want to allow myself to, you know, just give up on my child, give up on the visitation. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew I had a shot. I knew I can provide. So I just stayed persistent and resilient. It's really resiliency. Is the best, you know, recipe for it, because there were times where I actually tried to give up, and I actually I wrote about that in my book too, like how it became so overwhelming and so stressful at one point and so financially draining that I was like, bro, like, is it really worth it? You know what I'm saying? So, and I felt like it was. So, you know, I continued to just push and push.
How'd you find the strength to continue?
Family members, man. Just luckily I had a great support group around me who kept me focused and, you know, uplifted me through all the downfalls. And that was the key, because like I said, I wanted to give up, man, several times. But I stayed persistent, stayed consistent, utilized the strategy, and, you know, eventually was successful.
You mentioned, this support group, and I think that that's huge, right? When you go through things like this that are so difficult, it's so much easier just to say, okay, well, I'm just gonna, pay this child support and just, give up visitation rights and all those things. I think it again speaks to your character. I mean, that's what it keeps coming back to is like you wanted this to happen and you
Yeah.
made it happen. These people that were part of your support group, who were they?
My wife, my mom, my sister, cousins, and brother, like everybody. I had
Sure.
friends, and I also had like friends that became family over time who just heard about it and wanted to, jump to my support. So, um, eventually, friends in high places started making phone calls from me and things like that. And I kind of really go in depth in the book, but somebody really made an important phone call to the sheriff for me. You know what I'm saying?
Locally?
Locally.
Okay.
Yes. And that was able to really get things moving in my direction. Because before that, I tried everything I could. Even though I was successful in court, when I went to go and, get my child to come and live with me, like I was denied that opportunity. And
So
I
they
had,
granted it to you, but then took it
yeah.
away?
No. So the courts granted it to me,
Mm-hmm.
but when I went to go, retrieve my child from, his mom, it was very difficult to, get her to comply with the order.
Mm.
And, I couldn't get her on the phone. She wasn't responding to my texts and things like that. So it was very difficult to get them. So I had to get the police involved and, make all these phone calls. And I was scrambling and, some very supportive people really came to my aid and helped me, establish it. And I name drop them in the book,
Sure.
but I'm very thankful for those people.
So we get to the point where, you've gone through all these experiences and you've done all of this. At what point does the book become a reality? Like, at what point do you decide, hey, it's time to really tell my story?
Well, I've always been a writer, man. So like, I remember in elementary school, like writing short stories and poems and stuff like that. I won a few essay contests for writing and things like that. I got my bachelor's degree, so I got a bachelor's of science in aeronautics
Mm-hmm.
from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and most of that is just, writing papers.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always enjoyed it, and I saw like my cousin published a book recently, and I was like, hey, like, I reached out like, hey,
What book was
talk to me
that?
about the process. That was The Class Store, Felicia George Prince,
Okay.
Doctor
Doctor? Okay.
Felicia George Prince published her book called The Class Store,
Okay.
and that was very inspirational for me. So I ended up reaching out to her like, hey, like just kind of talk to me about the process, and luckily she was able to walk me through what she knew about the book writing process and gave me some contacts. And from there I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just try it, bro. Like,
How long ago was this?
this was actually a year ago, man.
It's been a full year now.
Yep.
And so right now, what are you working on? You are touring with the book.
Yep.
You came back to Statesboro. We're happy to have you back. We're doing a book signing today.
Yep.
Just getting kind of like the message out.
Yep.
What are the other steps that you're taking currently?
So right now I have a company called Unfaltering Fathers, LLC.
Okay.
So, and the Fathers is an acronym. It stands for Families Always Thrive, Having Essential Role Models.
Love that.
And like our mission is to just connect, educate, and inspire fathers from all walks of life to share inspiration and education and knowledge, and just kind of work together and network so that we can position ourselves to collectively get more time with our kids.
I think that's so important. I mean, the work that you're doing is so valuable to the community as a whole. What is the dream? What's the hope and aspirations of everything that you're doing right now? What do you hope to achieve?
So the dream is to just help position fathers to spend more time with their kids. And actually, man, I just got a testimony from one of my bros who I've been helping out for years. Like, he'll just reach out to me sometimes like, hey man, I'm going through this. This is what my child's mom is doing. Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
And essentially it's like coaching. And I didn't really realize it until recently, but like I've been coaching people through situations like this and providing them the knowledge and resources that I have, and it's already producing dividends. Like one of my bros called me and was like, "Hey man, just want to let you know, bro, like I got custody of my son recently and it's all because of you."
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's the mission for me. That's the dream for me, to just help out as many people as I can do that. You know what I'm saying? And through this book, I've been able to reach people on a wider scale to, give them the knowledge that I have, and, providing that advice and inspiration so that essentially they can get more time with their kids.
I think us as a culture right now, I don't know, what the specific statistics are out there, but there's a lot of homes out there that do not have their fathers.
Yeah.
For you to be positioned in a way where you are promoting, that idea of it is so valuable,
Yep.
To try to do that. What challenges do you see ahead of you?
Honestly, man, like I think most of the laws as far as like paternity rights and father's rights are just kind of outdated in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So I think we really got to target those laws and make sure they're updated to where we are now.
For example, what would be an example of that?
So for example, in the state of Georgia, fathers get only 20% of visitation time with their children, roughly. Just think about that for a minute. Like all the fathers in Georgia, just 20% of the time with their kid. Like if you think about it, by the time they're 18, if you only get 20%, like what percentage is that as far as like 4 years or something like that? Like,
That's right.
so that's not a lot of time, bro. Like,
So the goal potentially is to change that.
Yeah.
What do you think would be more reasonable, and why is it set at 20?
I don't know. Well, it's not set at 20, but the statistics say that fathers only get roughly 20% of the time with their children. Especially when they're not like married. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
I think ideal would be 50-50.
Sure.
Just to keep it fair.
That's right.
So that's the goal. And roughly 70% of kids who commit suicide come from a fatherless home. That's astounding to me. You know what I'm saying?
And how do you help those people? I mean, do you think it's the fathers that are at fault, or do you think it's the legal system that's at fault? Where do you think that the responsibility lies? Right? Because like you're a fighter, right? You went in there and you said no. Like even when it was hard, you were like, "This is what I want. This is what I have to have."
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to be as hungry as you are.
So not only was it, I don't want to say it's what I wanted. It was more like this is what I deserve as a father. You know what I'm saying? So
Huge.
Yeah, man. Like you definitely got to be a fighter. That's the only way. Because if you give up, you already self-eliminate. You're not even giving yourself a chance. And I just want to change that mentality because it's possible. And that's why I put my testimony here so people can see like, hey, it's possible. And I want to really change the narrative because we don't have to just sit back and just take this.
Yeah. As a word of advice, if there's a single thing that you could say to all those fathers out there, what would it be? That are in this maybe a similar situation where they're trying to fight for the custody of their child, what they deserve to be a part of their child's life. What would you say?
I would say, and I know it sounds cliche, but don't give up. Don't give up. Utilize your resources, and make great decisions and actually maintain a relationship with your child, because they're not going to give you custody if you can't prove that you have consistently been there for your kid. So be there for your kid, care about them, don't give up. Try to be cordial with the other parent too, because like all the fighting and stuff, that's not going to give you any, momentum. It's not going to really help you. So you have to be, use your wits about you. I know it's going to get tough. I know those conversations are tough to have, but we got to have them. And the way to get some, momentum is to have them cordially. And that's the best advice that I can give you. And I go so much into detail in the book about, you know, exactly what to do, exactly what not to do, things like that. It's all in there, man.
I love it. I love it. Where do people find the book at?
So right now, for autograph copies, it's
Okay.
on my website,
All right.
nicholasjwedlow.com. So my website also have merchandise on there. I have a few ebooks, things like that. But it's also on Amazon.
Okay.
So the book is on Amazon, ebook format, also paperback. But if you want an autograph, go to my website, nicholasjwedlow.com.
And how do people reach to you directly? What's the best way to
me
get
directly,
in contact with you?
Facebook and Instagram, man, at Nicholas J. Wedlow.
Okay.
Yep.
And who can reach out to you?
Anyone, man. I really encourage fathers to reach out. Anyone who's interested in a book, anything like that. I'm business too, you know, business ventures. There's a way to, you know, book me for events and things like that on my website as well. So I encourage anyone to reach out to me and just have a conversation.
Nick, I am so proud of everything that, you know, I've just heard. You know, you know, we lost touch for a good period of time, but to hear kind of, you know, you accepting the responsibility, and not only accepting the responsibility, but to produce something of such value to the community, and then also help promote this idea that, you know, fathers are a invaluable part of their children's lives, I think is amazing. You know?
I appreciate that, bro.
And I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Also, man, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to, you know, reconnect with you and just have a conversation, bro. It's been so long since we caught up, man. And I really appreciate the fact that you allowed me to, you know, come to your establishment, have a conversation, have some good food. And yeah, man, I want to have some drinks too. So
cool.
Let's celebrate.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, bro.
Thank you.